Leadership at many organizations today sucks. And that explains why so many large as well as small organizations are licking dust because of their floundering leaders. GE leaders are encouraged to break down boundaries whenever they see it. So, whenever you see bureaucracy or red tape, try to challenge it and break it. Accept reality as it is, not how you wish it should be.
Yeah.
People often indulge in wishful thinking. Reality is reality. Just accept as it is.
One single value that every GE employee is brought up upon till after so many years, what would that be?
If there are any GE people in the audience today, they will all echo the same answer as I will, which is hands down integrity.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for tuning into our extremely special edition of Towards a Better World community podcast on Thinkly Talks. Today, we have someone you have seen several times in this edition, possibly on this side of the mic. He is an award winning Asia Pacific leader who has worked across 6 industries and more than a dozen countries over the past 25 years. He is a daily blogger and a best selling author of 4 books. His blog posts and books enjoy a huge global readership. He is also an advisory board member, the University of New Haven's Pompeo College of Business, which, by the way, is ranked among top 5% of business schools in the world. Our guest refers to himself as an everyman who is an observer and recorder of human and organizational behavior. His community on Thinkly, Towards a Better World, has hosted some of the most prolific names in the contemporary world, from global CEOs to social change makers, from child prodigies to also the occasional Bollywood personality. In this episode of the current season of his podcast, whose theme is maximization of human potential, he takes on the speaker's mic and answers questions on leadership, especially some leadership lessons he's learned from prominent leaders at GE, an organization he refers to as his professional alma mater. Please welcome our speaker for the podcast, Mr. Ayon Banerjee. Sir, it's great to have you on today's podcast.
Thank you so much, Rhea. Thanks for the nice introduction and really appreciate you doing this. And I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation. Thank you.
Of course, sir, sure. So starting out, let's go ahead with the first and the most obvious question. So, why did you want this podcast to be on leadership? Given that it's one of the most done to death podcasts in the corporate realm today.
Great pertinent question, Rhea, to start with, and thanks for this. So, there's a short answer and a long answer to it. The short answer to this is that despite so many talks that you just said, so many tools, tackles, playbooks, and cheat sheets that are floating around, leadership at many organizations today sucks. And that explains why so many large as well as small organizations are licking dust because of their floundering leaders. Now, the long answer. In recent years, leadership has been perhaps one of the most overused, misused, and sometimes even abused word in management literature. With every thinker, offering his or her two-bit on what makes a leader, drawing analogies that are more anecdotal than ones that actually lead to outcomes. In other words, if someone gets the right results by some means, their playbook is instantly mapped and splashed all around as if it's a gospel on leadership. And this continues till the time these people falter or fall from grace, or till someone else comes along and captures the imagination of the business media.
Sure.
So this is what's been going on, and it gets all the more complex, when organizations try to cross-pollinate and they steal leadership pipeline from each other, because which is again a very ridiculous exercise, because every organization has its unique circumstances and challenges, right? So, and this is relevant especially today because in the 21st century, where you have these age-old behemoths, these large conglomerates, which are jostling for space and the investor dollar with rookie startups. So, this has created an industrial mix. This has changed the industrial mix in a way that was unimaginable till about 2 decades back. So we have a space now which comprises of conventional stalwarts. We have these accidental settlers, I call it, and also these upstart, disruptors. And the available talent pool is very diverse, but also it needs to be very customized, because the life cycle of this talent pool is on a constant decline, and it is for no fault of the leaders, because they work smart, they work hard, but it is simply because of the complex, the irrational, the impatient, and the instantaneous world that we are living in. Ria, when I speak to youngsters these days and you
Mm.
ask them about their aspirations, 7 out of 10 of them tell me that they want to become a CEO or a board member by the time they hit 35 years of age.
I'm included.
And whenever I hear, and sorry to burst the bubble, Ria, but whenever I, not for you, probably you'll make it, but whenever I use data points, and I don't have the heart to tell them that only a very tiny minority among them are going to break the glass ceiling of middle management and hit senior management by the time they're 40. And this is a very hard fact of life and a sad fact of life, that if someone doesn't break that glass ceiling by the time they're 40, they're probably not going to make it after that. Because it's
Mm.
after that, most of us settle down in a life of mediocrity 40
Mm.
onwards. So
Mm.
I know this sounds very despairing, and it sounds a little doomsdayish, but that's the fact of life, and probably it will change in the future, but I hope so it'll change. But so far, that's what my observation has been. So leadership, therefore, has got a lot to do with chance. It has to be right timing. You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to have the right sponsors within an organization, the right support structure around you to push you, to promote you, to talk about you behind your back. There have to be macro socio-economic trends, compatible consumer behaviors, which need to be aligned at the time when you are in office. Then, of course, your competition, whether it's a strong competition or a weak competition, then you need favorable internal attrition.
Mm.
Many leaders get into leadership positions because somebody else leaves the office and they walk
True.
into their positions.
Yeah.
So, is everything about leadership accidental? Definitely not. Despite so many, variables that I mentioned, we do have some real rock star leaders out there who are leading these massive shifts. They are creating immense shareholder value. They are keeping the organizations vibrant and among the most favorable places to work for all generations in the world. And today we have about 4 or 5 generations coexisting in the workforce, right? From the boomers
Mm.
to the Gen Zs.
Yeah, definitely.
And although each of these successful leaders, they have their own distinct style and personality, but what I have seen while studying them, and I have studied a lot of successful G leaders, that there are some common denominators of successful leaders. And these common denominators are industry agnostic, they're geography agnostic. So if people try to follow these, I think they can be successful irrespective of which industry or company or geography they are in. So the purpose of this today's session was to talk about those common denominators, Ria.
Hmm. Lovely, lovely answer, sir. I really like how you rounded up what sort of leaders are there, and how companies have different people from different backgrounds now, even boomers and Gen Zs. It's a very well-rounded answer. So also, while going through your career trajectory, you have GE is a very significant part of your career. So, and I also remember you once telling me that you're a GE fan, right? So, sir, could you share maybe your GE story? What struck you so special about GE when you joined? And maybe some organizational quality of GE that you feel are even universal even today?
Great question, Ria. Thank you. And yes, I do, refer to myself as a G fan often in my blog posts and some of the chapters of my books where I quote G. So not just because I'm an employee of this company, but I am a student and an admirer of this company. So the first time, Ria, when I set foot on this Crotonville campus in New York of G during the first rotation of my leadership program many years back, it was one of those fanboy moments for me, if you know what I mean. During the next few weeks, we spent time with several senior GE officers, including many of who had served under the legendary Jack Welch. And as the days went by and our class was gradually GEized, as they call it, by some of the best corporate leaders in the contemporary world, I was, because I am a blogger and a observer, I was by habit, trying to join the dots and to connect the GE that I had read so much about in the books, in management books, to the GE that I was experiencing in reality.
Mm.
And here's a confession, I was also secretly trying to find disconnects, if any. Here's the first thing, Ria, there were none. There were no disconnects. This was the first thing that hit me about G. There was this incredible sense of transparency, candor, and homogeneity of affairs. We used to call it say-do ratio, which is, you do as you say
Mm.
in G. And the next thing that hit me and struck me was this: there was this deep-seated pride for the organization, every employee that we met. Then, of course, there were other things. There was integrity, fair play, and integrity. We'll talk more about it as we go along, I'm sure.
Okay.
Fair play, and this intense desire to win. It was like a champion sports team. Every member, having this burning desire to win every game that they get into. That was there, and that kind of hooked me. And then, yet never had I ever seen such a diversity of ideas, backgrounds, and domains inside one room before that. But yet there was this strange thread that bound all of them and made them one. Somewhere along the way, we each of us would also go ahead and shed part of our individuality and acquire a bit of G into our personalities.
Mm.
And this is something that would stick with us in the years to come, throughout our careers, irrespective of whether we continue working for G or we don't. It's a one-way street. So some of the top, to answer your question, the top second part of your question. So the top organizational qualities that struck with me, and we'll probably talk more about it in subsequent questions. The first was radical candor. The first thing that will hit you about G when you meet G people, and if you are an outsider, is that people are so straightforward. There are no hidden spaces, no, secret narratives, nothing. And people just call spades as spades. It's like that.
Mm.
So initially, probably if you're coming from a conventional system, it might kind of unsettle you a little bit. You might think they're a little tad rude, but gradually you fall in love because this kind of candor and transparency is a very good place to work in. And then, of course, integrity is the cornerstone of G, and I can't speak enough about it.
Mm.
Staying apolitical, because of course any large organization will have some bits of politics here and there in the corners,
Yeah.
but isn't it? Yeah. So, but a G has got such a tough operational rigor that people generally don't have the luxury to indulge in politics, So there is very less politics in G. And then, of course, staying agile. Agility is the strongest ability of G, I say, because that's what has helped this organization to stay relevant for 130 years. No other organization has this kind of a lifespan. The only reason it has stayed relevant is because it has been agile and it has reinvented itself again and again with each generation. And that's why even today it is so much relevant. And then, of course, building new leaders is how G leaders are measured. So if you are a G leader, nobody is going to measure your report card or give you marks for your own achievements. Your report card as a leader in G is dependent on how many leaders have you created
Oh,
on your
absolutely.
watch. So
That's a
that's
lovely
that's
line.
yeah, so that's there. Then, of course, embracing DEI beyond the slogans and templates. 20 years back, DEI was not such a big vocal thing out there in the industry, right? But in G, we had seen and I had observed that regardless of your gender, your color, your sexual orientation, your race,
Mm.
nothing mattered. What mattered was your talent. If you were talented, you're going to be successful in this company and nobody's going to stop you. So that was a big meritocracy, what G used to be and is still. Then, of course, this intense competitiveness. Jack Welch used to say, get better or get beaten. Every day, a G leader tries to get better than yesterday, or they know that somebody else will get better and they will get beaten. And then, of course, lastly, in G, there is no bureaucracy. So you can lead proactively and take responsibility in this company without waiting for a title. If you are doing the right thing, you will never have a dearth of having the right sponsors. So these are some of the things that stuck with me, and probably they will stay with me throughout the rest of my career, even when I leave G. Ria.
Lovely, sir. So I'm really happy you actually even mentioned Jack Welch because that is where I wanted to even talk further about. Um, you have written extensively about his leadership style, and you've always been a great advocate of the same, and even made the bold statement of whichever organization follows Jack Welch's tips, they can just never fail. So, while we understand it's a little tough to capture a legacy in such a short answer, but maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about some common denominators of Jack Welch's leadership that can still be found in us GE leaders.
Ah, my favorite question about my favorite leader, Ria. Thank you for this. And I especially take a pause here because these days it has become fashionable in some circuits of management gurus to criticize Jack Welch. Because I
Mm,
think people are not as tough as Jack Welch, so it is the easiest thing is to do is to criticize him. But there are leaders, and then there is Jack Welch.
mm,
Even in the rich meritocracy that GE stands for, Jack Welch stands out. 25 years after hanging his boots, can you
mm,
imagine? And 5 years after he's passed on to his next plane. If you deconstruct the leadership playbook or behavior of any successful GE leader, you will find a little bit of Jack Welch inside there. Such is the long lasting impact of this charismatic gentleman, whose leadership principles became the foundation of the new G. By new G, I mean the G from the 80s and beyond.
mm.
And, as you said, it's very difficult to capture the legacy of such a charismatic leader in one answer. But I have some, even if you wake me up from sleep at 2 a.m., I will rattle out a few common denominators of Jack Welch's leadership style. And I'll try to, say them tell them one by one. And I feel that if any leader in any organization in any part of the world follows these principles, he or she is definitely going to succeed. So, number one, as I said in my previous answer, lead proactively, take responsibility. Don't wait for a title.
Mm,
Leadership is doing, don't wait for a title. Second, make calls. Do not sit on the fence. It is okay to make a few wrong decisions if you can correct them along the way, and if you can make more right decisions than wrong ones. That's okay.
mm,
Keep it simple. Don't complicate things with bowlers and charts and graphs and management jargon. Don't do it. Keep it simple. The simplest things are which are implemented the best, and people and
right.
the simplest strategies are always the most successful strategies. Challenge unnecessary bureaucracy whenever you see it. Boundaryless behavior is something that GE people are brought up on. GE leaders are encouraged to break down boundaries whenever they see it. So whenever you see bureaucracy or red tape, try to challenge it and break it.
Mm,
Learn to tell your story. The best ideas, unless they are articulated and sold, they're of no use here. Then I said in my previous answer, right, that grow more leaders, invest in
yeah.
people, nurture people, guide them, and lead them to leadership. That is your scorecard as a leader. Embrace change, invest, invite change, incite change, use change to your advantage, because in the long run, change is the only constant, and change is going to be your only friend. So don't be afraid of change, invite change, and embrace change. Imagine that there are not going to be any secrets out there. So in our formative years, we were told to apply the newspaper test on ourselves. Newspaper test means that before taking any decision, try to imagine that whatever you're going to do is going to be on tomorrow morning's front pages of the newspaper. Will you be comfortable with it?
Mm.
If you're going to be comfortable with it, go ahead and do it. If not, don't do it. Integrity is everything.
So this is
Except,
something even I follow actually. I read this
really,
somewhere, and it's such a great idea to, just check, okay, fine, will you be comfortable with it tomorrow? So is it the right decision today? It's one of the best tips for even young brooding leaders like me.
absolutely. And I'm glad that you follow that, Ria. It's very important, because just acting on the spur of the moment, and tomorrow when you regret for a decision, it's
Mm,
better to be careful and safe than to be sorry tomorrow.
absolutely.
So apply the
Mm,
newspaper test. Accept reality as it is, not
yeah.
how you wish it should be.
Yeah.
People often indulge in wishful thinking. Reality
Mm,
is reality. Just
mm,
accept as it is.
mm,
Follow through. Plans which are not followed up, they remain as plans.
mm.
So a good leader needs to follow up on everything. And I think you guys must be sometimes irritated, must be getting irritated with me when I keep following up on even the smallest thing during my podcast. But that's the GE person in me. I can't rest till I know everything is in place, so I have to follow up. So that's another thing. Leadership means respectfully infusing energy and can do in others, respectfully.
Mm,
If you cannot energize a workplace by your sheer presence, you are not a leader.
mm,
Then be approachable. This is extremely important, Ria, and I say this because these days I often notice, even some upstarts, by the time they reach mid management, they grow such huge egos that they become, unapproachable to people down the value chain. They don't respond to emails, they don't respond to texts, they don't answer, they don't take calls from people whom they think are junior to them or are not of any transactional gain for them. They are bad leaders. These bad leaders, they build boundaries. Great leaders, they break them. They minimize the layers between them, between the top and the field. Even in G, this is a practice that is still there. Most of G, it still follows it. Between the CEO and the last person in the chain in the field, the number of layers between the two of them is hardly five or maximum six. That's what it is. It is not some multinationals have like 15, 16 layers.
Yeah.
GE never believed in that. It's very boundaryless that way. Uh, get better or get beaten. Like I said, if you don't get better, then somebody else will get better. If you are playing a game, play to win. Don't just play to play. The best organizations in the world, they are learning organizations. Where they encourage free flow of information between employees, and everyone is learning from everyone else. Because I have seen some political and failing organizations where company information is used as personal currency by some people. So they hoard information. That's never the right way to create a meritocracy. You have information. It is inform everyone, inform everyone, involve everyone. That's the
Mm.
G way. Then this is another thing which is criticized these days a little bit by people, which is Welch used to say that if you are in any business, be either number one or number two, or get out of that business.
Mm.
So even if you are profitable, don't stay in the business if you're not number one or number two. Because he used to joke that if you are number five in a business, and if the number one sneezes, you get pneumonia. So so when you're number one or number two, you control the destiny of your business. So that is a very G competitive thing, which Welsh used to believe a lot. Behave like a small shop, no matter how big you get. And this is especially relevant today, I see, with these startups. We often read of these startups. The moment they hit a certain orbit, the founders get too pricey and too big for their boots. They start splurging money and they start acting, high and mighty. And soon, they nosedive. So G was always about behaving like a small shop. Even if it was a 400 billion market cap at some point, I think, even then, each CEO of each business used to think of their business as a small shop. So
Mm.
that's how businesses stay agile and strong. Get ultra serious about quality about your processes, your people, your employees, your services, and your products, of course, because this is what will be your differentiation factor with your competitors. Then speed. Speed is everything. So Jack Welch had three words which he used to use: speed, simplicity, and self-confidence. So speed is everything when you are playing the winning game. Do not sit mulling and contemplating when you should be out there going getting things done. And finally, given a choice between values and numbers, go for values. Start with values and the numbers will follow. I think these are some of the things, top of the mind things, which any leader in any geography, in any industry, if they follow, I think they'll not fail. Ria.
Extremely, extremely true, sir. This is extremely powerful tips also what you're giving. Also, I just have a supplementary question to the answer that you just gave. You've written a lot of Jack Welch and vintage GE leaders. They were so passionate of hiring and talent management, right? So maybe you could just elaborate a bit more on the big emphasis of differentiation and succession planning that have always given GE a competitive edge.
Yeah. So, yes, so Jack Welch and the old school G leaders, they were all very passionate about talent management, right?
Mm.
So,
Mm.
and talent and talent management, and this was probably the reason why there was one point in time when you go to any Fortune 500 company, most of the CEOs were ex-G people. So
Mm.
G was referred to as a leadership factory. That's the reason why it was referred to as a leadership factory. So now, since I'm an observer of organizational behavior here, so I have seen that if you sit and observe that the talent crunch, that we so crib about all the time, that, there's a talent crunch in organizations. This talent crunch is not so much to do with real lack of talent per se, but it has got more to do with talent that dies down along the way because it
mm,
is not picked up in time, it
mm.
is not applauded, and it is not given new challenges to stay relevant, because talent is a perishable commodity.
Right.
If you are a talented 26-year-old, and if you don't get the right challenges and the right breaks in time, you will not remain a talented 35-year-old by the time you become 35, right?
Mm,
So you need to get those right breaks in time. And so, there were two major aspects on. There are a lot of talent management things, principles that we can learn from the GE leaders and Welch especially. But the first one is, which is very close to my heart, and again, maybe this could be controversial because this is many people criticize it these days, but I think the very fact that they criticize this is the fact why they are not succeeding these days. So first is called differentiation. So in Welch's language, it was called as 20-70-10 rule, which is probably the missing link that what leads to most organizations to flounder today. It goes something like this. So identify your top 20% of your talent, and then you treat them real special, in the soul and in the wallet. Treat
mm.
them real special. Then you help the middle 70% to bridge gaps and create an aspirational path for them to try and become among the top 20%. And then you have identified the bottom 10%, the laggards. See, harsh as it might sound, they are not making the cut, and in the long run, they probably need to go sooner or
Mm.
later, right? And it is best that they are given this feedback candidly, but with empathy, not with in the guillotine way, but with empathy. There to, and many a times I have seen that a laggard in one organization, when they leave, they find another organization where they do very well. So,
Mm.
it could be that you are doing a
Right.
good service to them by asking. So give them the right feedback that uh, you are not making the cut here. Maybe you could put them through a development plan, but even if they don't come up by then they should part respectfully, and they should go and find where they can do well. And what happens is this churning keeps your organizational quality of your talent pool always better, competitive in the marketplace. And worst thing which people do is that never dole out those consolation prices, that in the form of those fake 2 to 3% salary raises every year to these laggards, because what will happen is that will give them an illusion that we are doing fine. So, and
Yeah.
then at the end, when you ask them to go, they'll probably say, "Oh, no, why you never told us that we were not doing fine?" So you
Right.
should pass on the feedback and part with empathy, with grace, with respect. Part with them. If you study and this is very important, if you study struggling organizations, Ria, the leadership there is very wary of celebrating their superstars. They are always insecure about inviting a mutiny among the mediocre herd. So they think that if I promote a super performer, other my mediocre herd will rise up in protest with flags. Why did you
Mm,
promote that person?
mm,
So
mm.
they are very scared of differentiating their superstars. And
Right.
they are very petrified of uh, pointing out to the laggards that you are a laggard, because they feel that if they do that, they will lose their approval ratings, or their best employer ratings in some irrelevant employer survey. And so what they end up doing is they become kakistocracy. So kakistocracy is basically the opposite of meritocracy. So
Mm.
in literal terms, kakistocracy means rule of the worst. So basically, the worst people survive, and they become breeding grounds for toxic mediocrity. And you will see this in so many organizations. And there'll be mutual back scratching clubs where everybody is covering for each other. Nobody is aiming at excellence. And if you dare to aim for excellence, they will sideline you. They will, kind of corner you into and you will be made to feel as if you are wrong and the
Right.
herd is right. So that is a kakistocracy. So and then one day what happens in every kakistocracy is that one day the board wakes up, smells
Mm.
the coffee, kicks out the leadership team, and initiates a restructuring drive. where again, without any rhyme or reason, science or art, they just go through abruptly cutting
Right.
costs, stopping pay hikes, suspending bonuses, freezing headcounts, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, the real problem never gets solved because keeps getting worse because all the strategy gets reduced to sloganeering, and real execution gets it plummets because you have now lost your people, so you don't have experienced people to execute your projects, so you are facing penalties in the marketplace, you are losing new markets, and your competition is having a field day kicking your rear side in the marketplace. So if you see, if these companies had been following Welch's 2070-10 rule, they would not have landed in such a mess, and such a mess could have been averted. So I think this is very differentiation is extremely important for
Right.
companies to remain as meritocracies. The next is succession planning. This is very anecdotal, but I love Welch's way how he narrates succession planning. So he spent actually Jack Welch spent 6 years on his own succession planning. 6 years, can you believe it? I mean, and he attributes failure at most companies to lack of succession planning, which leads, what happens in most companies is by the time they realize that they have to replace a top guy, the CEO, top person, a CEO, by because of performance issues or because the CEO has left, they have no other option. They go to the next competitor and they go and woo the number twos of those competitors with an astronomical amount of money, and they try to woo them inside them. So that's what happens in most companies. So in Welch's own case, there were three contenders. So, and this is available in all the public domain books if you can read. So there was Jeff Immelt, who finally got the job. There was Bob Nardelli, who went to Home Depot, and then there was Jim McNerney, who went to 3M.
Mm.
So all of them were, by Jack Welch's own admission, they were all equally talented. So he could not actually differentiate between the three except for a last minute gut. It's like that.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So Welch used to joke in his books that Jeff got the job and the raise. So congratulations, Jeff. But in the case of Bob and Jim, the trucks were loading money on the back of their vans because their future employers didn't have succession plans in place. So that is the importance of succession planning, especially in leadership, because many companies flounder, because there are these days you see there are some, and sometimes there are very selfish leaders who are extremely conscious about extending the folklore of their own leadership and what they do is they deliberately don't create a succession plan so that when they leave, the company nosedives. And then they can, extend their folklore saying that, see, under me, it was doing so well. Now it's not doing so well. So that's not the right way.
Right.
Succession planning is
Yeah.
very important.
True. True, sir. I think we see this so much. There are so many examples of what you've just said, even right now in the companies that we have for succession planning and even for the differentiation part. So I just had an off question regarding the differentiation. You said that some laggards in a company that they're in right now, they may not do so well, but when they shift to another company, they may become one of the 70% of it.
Correct.
So,
Or even 20%, or even 20%.
or even 20%, sir. So why do you feel like they may not have performed in the first company?
I'll give you a real life example, Ria. So when I was very young, when I started off in my early career as a young engineer, I started as a systems engineer, which was and I was a circle in charge. In this was 1997, and we were installing the backbone for microwave networks for the mobile phones were just coming in India. So I was a systems engineer for the state of Bihar, which was Bihar and Jharkhand put together today.
Hmm.
So and it was a dream job for any engineer. Okay, and you won't believe I hated it. I just hated it every day, and every day going to site and climbing up those towers and doing those antenna alignment, taking measurements. I just hated it. I was from heart people person. I was a commercial person. I was a
Hmm.
sales guy, and this job was, it just sucked. And naturally I was doing very bad in that job, at that job, and my
Hmm.
bosses didn't like me. They rated me
Hmm.
very badly. They said this guy has an attitude that stinks, and this guy doesn't listen to orders. He's forever looking for excuses not to go to site, etc., etc., blah blah blah. Then, bingo, I joined my next company, which was Philips, as the frontline sales manager for a state of Orissa. And I was a one man show. And
Timing.
it was like first love for me. And I did so well in the first year. I got promoted. I was among the top performers of the company. So I was a laggard in my previous job just a year back, and I was a top performer in my next company. So sometimes, laggards, you may not be in the right place, so you
Yeah.
need to probably move on to that. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, sir, 100%. And this is so nice to know as well about a career journey from a laga to a 20%. It's great.
Thank you.
So just an off question. If you had to name one single value that every GE employee is brought up upon still after so many years, what would that be?
So I don't know if there are any GE people in the audience today, but if there are, they will all echo the same answer as I will, which is hands down integrity. The spirit and the letter, especially the spirit. The letter is also very important. I'm not saying the letter is not important, but the letter, sticking to the letter only, is being only compliant. Integrity in the GE way is being more than compliant, because compliance is about external policing while others are watching you. Integrity is internal, even when no one is watching you. Compliance is objective, it is auditable and measurable. It is about dollars and cents. Integrity is subjective, it is amorphous. It is about conduct and attitude, right? Whether it is about bringing your best self to work, or whether it is about refusing to join a coterie just to be absolved of accountability, that you scratch my back, I scratch yours, you don't expose me, I don't expose you. Refusal to join such a club is integrity. So I don't know if you've read Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. So in Fountainhead, there is a scene where the board finally agrees to give Howard Roark, who is the protagonist, the commission, and they say that we'll give you the commission provided you change your design and alter it to what we want it to be. So Roark refuses, and the board is like flabbergasted. They say that here is a man on the brink of utter destitution. That guy is almost a destitute, and still he is unwilling to compromise on his design. I mean, they say, "Do you have to be so fanatical and selfless about it?" The board asks him. So Roark, smiles at them and says that this was the most selfish thing you've ever seen a man do, and he concludes the conversation. So integrity is a very selfish thing. You practice integrity for yourself. You sleep better at night. It's not for anybody else. It's the value that guarantees
Right.
all other values. And all other G people who are on the show, give me a high five for that.
Lovely. Um, so you had mentioned restructuring actually a couple of answers back. And these days we hear so much about it. It's like a buzzword going around. So every company gets into a restructuring mode every few quarters. And now, as an outsider, when I see, if I may, that is, GE has historically also been very volatile, an organization that has seen massive M&As and the resultant restructuring from the same. So, if I may ask you, and I want you to answer this as an industry watcher and not as a GE employee, how do you think GE's restructuring over the years is different from the others?
Great question. Sensitive question, but great question. Thanks, Ria. So let us start with restructuring itself, the term.
Yeah.
So if I go by the Wikipedia definition of restructuring, it goes something like this, that it is defined as reorganizing the legal or ownership or operational and other structures of a company for the purpose of making it more profitable, or making it better organized for its present needs, or to facilitate a change in the organizational structure. Uh, by the way of a divestment, or a mechanism to respond to bankruptcy or a takeover. This is the classical definition of what restructuring means.
Yeah.
Uh, on a macro level, restructuring can be a corporate restructuring, it could be a debt restructuring, or it could even be a financial restructuring within the company, right? So, restructuring also has a very thin boundary line with its close cousin, which is known as turnarounds. So, although they have both of them have a lot in common. So, first of all, to answer a question from a non-G point of view perspective, so I had the privilege of inviting my one of my mentors and my favorite turnaround gurus of all times on this podcast last year, Sam Ghosh. So to explain to you who Sam Ghosh is, your Thinkly website has got Sam's photo on the picture on that, so you could check him out. So Sam is like to the Indian insurance industry what probably Bachchan is to Bollywood, right?
Oh,
So he's the man who created 70% of the CEOs in today's industry. So he's that man. And I have seen him in action working under him when he turned around a company which was languishing at number eight among eight companies in the industry to number one within a few quarters. And he changed the company at every nook and corner. It's not that he followed some shortcut. He changed the whole DNA of the company. So I have seen that, and I would urge, probably again talking about Sam in one answer is very difficult. I would urge the viewers, if you have not seen that episode, you could check it out on YouTube. That 1 hour is a master class on leadership, on turnaround leadership. So that's on turnarounds. Now, if to answer your question, Ria, how the G style of restructuring is different. Volatile is the right word, but at the same time, G has been volatile for all the right reasons. Because when you are there for 130 years, to stay relevant, there are some dated practices that you have to let go, and you have to adapt yourself to the new world every decade, probably less than a decade
mm,
nowadays. So there are certain things, it is very difficult to put a playbook for leaders, but I
mm,
have seen some good leaders follow certain steps in their leadership style. And I think if any leader follows these, asks themselves these questions, they will probably not need to restructure their companies every second or third year.
yes.
So number one, I can probably point out some questions which, if there are leaders listening in, if they can ask themselves, if they ask themselves these questions often or not. First is, do you smoke out the hiding places in your companies? Because every large organization has a lot of these hiding places. These are noble sounding platitudes which people find nice places to hide behind. It could be compliance, it could be EHS, health and safety, it could be DEI. These are all necessary and nice good things. But at the same time, there are many people who hide behind these, and they use them as excuses for not delivering their results. So smoke out the hiding places where people are hiding. Number one. Number two, get Homo sapiens back into the HR department. Homo sapiens,
Yeah,
because HR is about human beings. And
right.
unfortunately, in many organizations these days, I see men and women with no soul in the game. They are head nodders, they are pitch makers, they are boss appeasers, and they are file pushers. They have no interest in the human beings in the company. And
Yes.
these people are in HR. So you have to kick them out very ruthlessly and get human beings back in HR. Do you have enough human beings? Number two. Number three, dump those stupid, colorful intranet emailers that these CEOs keep sending in these large organizations, and those ho-hum town halls that these CEOs go and speak to the employees. They just keep dishing out repetitive information which
Yeah.
nobody's interested. The same repetitive information they keep on. Instead, what should be a leadership messaging about? It should explain what's going on, where are we headed, why are we doing this, this is how we will do this, this is your role in it, and this is what we will all get as rewards at the end of it. That is what a leadership messaging should be. So every leader should ask, am I articulating my messaging in that way? If not, I have to change it. Then make sure your leaders become enablers and simplifiers for your team, rather than causing more and more complex hurdles for them in form of layers and bowlers and charts and reviews and smart sheets. You will see this in every large failing organization. They have this host of this repetitive meetings which are basically different permutations of the same information that is fed back in different formats, and it's just a bloody waste of time and productivity of people. So leaders should be simplifying, cutting through that bullshit. That's there. What's your strategy meeting like? Does your strategy meeting involve a bunch of suits sitting inside a very cold and dark meeting room, and where they're flashing hundreds of slides where they're discussing the irrelevant past? If you're doing that, you're failing. A strategy meeting should be where you should be having a candid assessment where you thrash out a spot of your competition, not just your linear and direct competition, but also your tier 2, tier 3 competition. And you should instigate, loud brainstorming sessions, because you will see dying organizations. This in dying organizations, these strategy meetings are silent spaces. Nobody confronts anybody else. There are no arguments. But good strategy meetings, you will see there are fights going on. They are loud because people are passionate about what they feel, and that's what takes the company from a trot to a gallop in the future. Then, of course, do you run regular checks on the visceral fat in your company? Visceral fat means those feckless salespeople who are sitting in the layers, who don't own objective contribution margin targets. I have a very simple formula for this. I have seen these people that you will see in many large organizations, there are this hordes of people who do some mysterious thing called business development. I don't know whatever that means. They don't get any real business. They are paid fat salaries. They are not accountable for any numbers. First thing you should do is kick them out. Because, if my formula is very simple, if a commercial team is not earning at least 5 times what is being spent on them, your company is bleeding.
Mm.
So the right ratio is between 5 and 7. If it is less than 5, you should kick them out. If it is more than 7, probably you need more headcount because they are probably getting stretched. So 5 and 7 is the golden rule, at least in my experience. Do you regularly analyze your failures and deconstruct your successes? Because, in most large organizations I've seen, people become suckers for success alone, just success. So if they see success as something, as somebody as successful, they go bring out their drums to beat, and they start celebrating. And they just think that failure is a bad word. But the right leaders, what they do is that they look very critically at something, the right efforts which might have failed. And they also don't go overboard celebrating good luck that led to success. So, the quality of a leader is to understand what was luck, and what was, the right effort which didn't succeed. Then, of course, demystify finance and free finance from the clutches of those jargon spewing CFO types. You will see in many companies, these CFO types, they will create those Excel sheets, and they will use terminologies which nobody understands, and so that they get a sense of self importance out of that. And the best organizations, finance is absolutely demystified. So it will be a few simple metrics which everybody understands. Even if you ask the janitor, he or she will be able to answer you what the financial metrics are for the organization. If you can achieve that, that is a successful organization. Groom true blue hunters instead of territory managers. Most companies, they don't go and hunt for business these days. They are territory managers. Most people, in companies, customer facing people are territory managers. And in many large organizations, I have seen that they confuse customer service with sales. Customer service is customer service. Sales is sales. Period. They are not the same. So never confuse both of these. Then, of course, install a precise BS filter, sorry for the language, when it comes to your globalization strategy. Because you will often see that when there are large MNCs, say, in one part of the world, and when they try to extend their footsteps into the other part of the world, they fall for a lot of crap fed to them from their own employees on that part of the world. So just somebody is coming from, say, a US MNC is trying to set shop in Asia. So the Asian people will tell them, oh, this won't work here, this kind of lines. Then they will, and then they will fall in for all these free pilots, extra warranties, extended credit terms, deep discounts, urgent technology transfers, compromised channels, and that those millions of or at least tens of thousands of dollars which they spend on whining and dining of these for these employees for that mysterious activity which I mentioned called business development, which never, it develops no business. So you should be having a precise BS filter when they tell you this won't work here. That is there. Then there was this famous Steve Jobs' analogy, do you have your team of black sheep, your own team of misfits, your rule breakers, your rebels, and your round pegs in square holes? These are your own band of pirates, who live outside boxes. And when you set them loose, they can have your competitors MBAs for breakfast. So you should have your team of black sheep all the time. Good CEOs have that. Do you have a robust storm prep? This is vintage Jack Welch again, because these days, storms are going to hit you every other day. It's a reputational storm, it's a market storm, whatever it is, stock market storm. You need real pros and grown-ups to look in the eye of the storm and face it instead of juveniles. So
Mm.
do you have a robust storm prep? Stop spending most of your time celebrating those top 10% rainmakers or micromanaging the bottom 20% laggards. Instead, spend more time harnessing the untapped potential of that 70%, functional mass. That's what great leaders do. And lastly, on marketing, check whether your market, and most large companies these days suffer from this. Marketing in large companies is very top down and jargony. It is not
Mm.
bottom up and organic. So does your marketing team carry a measurable financial target on its head? Or does it just consist of a bunch of MBAs mouthing buzzwords which sound profound and mean nothing? So, if these are some of the questions, if the leaders keep asking themselves periodically and they answer them truthfully and to themselves, they will not need to restructure themselves, I think, Rio.
So also, just to think of it, is there an other way that we, uh, instead of doing restructuring, what other options can leaders look into?
There are a lot of things you can do it. Of course, it's not that restructuring is always unnecessary. Sometimes it is necessary.
Very
Sometimes
necessary.
you need to do it sometimes. But there are times where restructuring just acts as a decoy for leaders to save face and extend their own shelf life at the
Yeah.
cost of employees and shareholders. So in those cases, there could be a lot of things. You could create a war chest to coast through the bad times. Like during COVID, many companies did that. I had Matthew Job, who is the Times Now Leader of the Year, Asia Leader of the Year, who came in and he said that Crompton Greaves, they didn't lay off a single person during COVID. They said that we created a war chest. Nobody got a salary cut. We made sure that we were with through the storm while the storm lasted. So create a war chest. Salary cuts, if you have to do it in a very proportional manner so that the top management takes the maximum salary cuts and the bottom most people take the least. So you have
Mm.
to segregate it like that. Then there are other things. You have to look at alternative avenues, what you can do during quick wins during that to coast through the time when till the time the big wins come along. And there are many other things you could do if you don't want to restructure. Mostly, you have to go play offense also at times. You cannot always play defense whenever a storm hits you. And that's the problem
Right.
with many leaders these days. They get
Mm.
scared and they get defensive whenever they
Mm.
see a storm approaching. That's not the way. Good leaders in earlier times, they would increase their business generation in bad times. So they would double their sales efforts, double their
Mm.
market efforts, increase their customer satisfaction. They would go and meet customers, regularly. So they will get to know the voices of the market instead of sitting inside a cold air conditioned office and just imagining how the market is. So like I
Mm.
said, reality is what reality is, not what you imagine it to be. So take reality as it is.
Right. Right. So lovely, absolutely lovely answer. Now we move on to a little more fun segment of our podcast. It's the rapid fire round. So I'll ask you a few questions and you can just answer them. So
Sure.
first, who is your favorite CEO in today's world and why?
Okay. Favorite CEO. This might be a little controversial. So, first, I will say among the CEOs I have worked under, it is John Flannery, who has come on this podcast, and he was the erstwhile chairman of GE. But among the contemporary CEOs, the controversial answer is Elon Musk. I know
Oh.
he's not one of the most popular people in the world, and it's fashionable to bash Elon Musk. But I really admire him because he's somebody who is not a template-driven leader. He
Mm.
is a man. He is his own person, and he's somebody who creates things, and he's never afraid to be authentic. He may be wrong, but he's never inauthentic. And I That's my kind of leader. I like those kind of people. I don't like those politically correct sanitized version of leaders who never make any mistakes, who never say any politically wrong things. And if you don't make a few mistakes, you will never hit a few home runs also. So
Mm.
you need to be a little bit edgy to be like that. And Elon Musk definitely is that.
This is a great answer, and definitely not a what do you say? A novel answer. It's a little more hatke answer, if I may.
Populist. It's not a populist answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a populist answer.
Thank you.
What about your favorite political leader in today's world?
Oh, without question, it's our honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. It's not that I am not, don't think that I have any inclination, political inclinations, or I am a sycophant of the ruling party for India, nothing of that sort. I admire Mr. Modi for his sheer persona, and this admiration has only grown over time. I used to like him a lot when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, but after becoming the Prime Minister, he is like, if you want to define who is the CEO of India Incorporated, right? It is Mr.
Mhm.
Modi. So, look at his entire, the way his strategies are, the way his core team is
Absolutely.
aligned around him, the way he communicates, the chemistry he shares with people, and most of all, his boldness in situations. It gives people confidence and hope. It is because of Narendra Modi ji today that Indians are having this, today, this young India, which India's average age is about 27 years now. And that's the reason, because we have a leader like him, Indians are standing tall and, chin up in the world. We are not that generation like when we grew up. We used to think that, we used to feel conscious when we used to go and step out in front of Westerners, or, first time I went to US or the UK, I used to feel a little bit self-conscious. But under Mr. Modi, I think this new generation of Indians is super confident. I think he gives you the comfort that the country is safe, respected, and well taken care of under his leadership.
Agreed, sir. Favorite leader from the world of sport?
Oh. World of sport, there are a lot of leaders. A lot of sport analogies can be drawn to leadership. But my favorite is Saurav Ganguly, because not because I'm Bengali, and neither because I was a distant admirer of his. But in a couple of years back, I had the opportunity to be on the same stage as him, and we hosted a program together, and we had a conversation, etc. So I became a fan at that point when I actually spent time with him, because he was, like I said about Musk, he is extremely, you get whatever is on the label, you get inside. He's a very forthright and a candid human being. And most importantly, as a leader, his legacy, when you deconstruct, there are great leaders in the world of sport, and every leader has taken their team from point A to point B in
Right.
some form or other.
Mm.
But what Ganguly had done, what was that he transformed Indian cricket forever by transforming the psyche of the Indian team. We were, before Ganguly, the Indian team was about that we are, as long as we are participating, we are good. I mean, they never
Yeah.
had that hunger for they never thought that I can be better than the Aussies, I cannot be better than the Brits. And Ganguly infused that thing in them, that we are better than all of you, that
Mm.
he transformed a brat pack into a team. I think
Mm.
that's why he's my favorite leader.
A powerful leader as well, if I may add.
Oh yes,
Um,
very powerful.
any inspiring female woman leader that you follow?
There are a lot of inspiring women leaders, of course, everywhere. And in my company as well, I have worked under several great women leaders. But if I may answer this question, Ria, without naming any particular person, but if I may answer that, I have a lot of regard, and this is uh, this is a cultivate. I mean, this has grown over time. Is this generation of women, which is like you, I have one at home, my daughter. So this generation, uh, uh, I like them because they are very comfortable in their own skin. So, they
Right.
are never afraid of being themselves when they are out in the world. So, they are doing a great service to their future generations, because couple of decades back, women leaders were all about trying to get a seat at the table with men. And and it was always being, a balancing act between, being a woman and being a leader. And
Mm.
nowadays, a woman can be both a woman as well as a leader, wearing all the vulnerabilities that they have. They don't care, and they just wear their vulnerabilities. take them or leave them. It's like that. And that's why these women leaders, you will see, they are excelling so much in various fields. It's not just in corporate. They are excelling in all fields, and you will see the same spark, whether it's in the world of sport, in the world of corporate, whether it's in the world of politics. All these women have got a certain spark which is very authentic, and I admire that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I agree. I think my generation is completely on board with the idea and even trying to instill it more. Be comfortable in your own skin, and aspire to grow. Don't try to fit in. You are who you are. I
Absolutely.
completely agree. So, lastly, would you like to share something with your viewers before we open the floor to our audience for some questions?
No, I think we are almost up on time. So my viewers, I don't know how many people of them have logged in. If there are people, so this was an episode where I spoke on leadership, and I offered my humble tribute to this organization where I've grown up in. It's called G, and I just wanted to share that I am leaving G at the end of this month. I am going somewhere else. So I just wanted to do this podcast as a humble thanks to the organization where I've learned so much. So I wanted to share this with my viewers.
So, lovely. Let's move on to some questions. We have a lot of questions for us actually. So, this is from Aniket Rao. Do leadership skills change depending on the industry, and or are they or are there universal qualities that work everywhere?
Thanks, Aniket. Great question. I think leadership behaviors are transferable as long as you stick to those basics. Like when I was answering the question on Welsh, I said a number of leadership qualities. So those are the qualities which are universal. They are industry agnostic. If you have,
Mm.
for example, integrity doesn't care whether you work for FMCG or you work for software. So if
Mm.
you, as a leader, you have to have
Yeah.
integrity. People management, same. So it's like that. So these are traits you will obviously, if you have them in you, you will carry them with you, and they will always support you no matter which industry you are in. But then there are
Right.
industry specific skills that you will need. They are domain skills, they are not leadership skills per se.
Right. I agree. There are different kinds of skills, and it depends on whichever organization you are.
Yeah,
This is from Anand Sharma. What are some risks if a company does not have a solid succession plan in place?
lot of them. So like I said, many is that the question, or is there something else to the question?
No, sir, that's it.
So, Anand, thanks for the question. So, if a succession plan is not there, the first thing that happens is there will be a vacuum. So, once the leader leaves, there will be a gap in performance. There will be a drop in employee mojo. So, there will be a lot of fans of the erstwhile regime who will feel disillusioned, and they will look for jobs and move ahead. And
Mm.
unless they feel comforted in the new leadership that's coming in, then of course market forces react, because when you have a
Yeah.
strong leader leaving leaving his or her position, the market also responds very emotionally to it. And till the time the new leader proves his or her mettle, the markets can be very unforgiving and ruthless on the company. Customers may lose their confidence, because
Yes.
if you are in there are certain industries where the top 3 or 4 players are neck to neck with each other.
Mm.
So for the customer, it is the leader's face which matters a lot while they are making those important decisions. So if a leader moves on, they might move to the next competitor. So all these things can happen. So that's the reason a succession plan is extremely important.
Right, sir. So we also have another great question from Rahul Kumar. What's
Mhm.
one habit that keeps a leader grounded?
Okay, that's great. So I think it's kind of an oxymoron if I say this, but I think humility, because and humility is not something, don't get me wrong, Rahul. Humility is not virtue signaling. Humility doesn't mean apologizing for your strengths. Because, we Indians rank humility among the top human values, and we are sometimes penalized for it, because in many parts of the world, Indians are perceived as a land of slum dogs who hang from train roofs, because of that perception of Indian humility, that if I have to touch your feet, if I have to show that I am humble. We don't care about touching anybody's feet. That doesn't mean that I am not humble. Likewise, if I don't apologize for my strengths, it doesn't mean that I am arrogant.
Mm.
So, but at the same time, humility is a very internalized value which grows in you. And when you are young, it is pretty okay to be not so humble. When we are young and growing, we sometimes get a little bit of arrogance in us, which is fine. Life evens us out as we grow older. So, but in the long run, I think a leader needs to be humble, because till you are humble, you don't listen well, you don't learn from your mistakes, you don't learn from others. Very importantly, I know of so many leaders who learn from. I'll give you a quick example if it's okay.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
a Bollywood example. So Shah Rukh Khan had an anecdote. Once he said that when once asked that uh, in the early years when he had just come in, that somebody said that you copy Nasiruddin Shah, you copy Amitabh Bachchan, you copy Dilip Kumar. He said, no, I also copy Nana Patekar, I copy Rishi Kapoor. Then they said that he said that when this is a habit since school. He said that when I was in class, whenever the teacher would ask a question, I let everybody else answer. Then I will combine their answers and answer in the last. So, and he was perceived to be a very arrogant person, but this statement was a very humble statement. So you learn from your competitors and then you go out, right? So humility, Rahul, short answer, humility.
And so finally, we have one last question from Anjali Singh. How do you stay relevant as a leader year after year?
Great question, Anjali. And this gets more and more, this question on relevance gets more relevant as you grow older. So because relevance is very fleeting, and it is and it slips away just when you try to cling on to it. So so sometimes, first thing is you need to be humble and agile over a period of time without dismissing anything. There are no good old days out there. So the day you get caught up in the good old days syndrome, you will lose relevance. So be humble and open to new ideas, what others are saying, the new generations are saying, teaching you, learn from them. And then, of course, there are two kinds of relevance, Anjali. First is an encore, which is basically finding a new page one in the middle of your story. So, for example, Ganguly is kicked out of the Indian cricket team. He reinvents himself, comes back as a top scorer in both formats of the game. That is an encore. So you come back, in the middle of your story. But then there is another kind of relevance which happens towards the end of your career, which is basically a swan song. So swan song is basically which you don't care about the trophies of the past, or about relevance of the future. It is just your last and your best. Whether the world gets it or not doesn't matter. It's their loss if they don't get it. So it's like Don Bradman signing off with zero, or where Sly Stallone walking out of the shadows in Creed and saying, handing over the reins of Rocky to Creed. So that is a swan song. You're last, you're best. So that's how you stay relevant in your own eyes, because relevance is a very internalized scorecard. It gets more and more internalized as you grow older. In your younger days, it is more about validation and trophies, external trophies. When you grow older, it becomes more about the person in the mirror whom you see while brushing your teeth at night. If you can look eye to eye with that person, you are relevant.
This is a very circle of life moment, sir. So
Thank
it's
you.
been an absolute privilege hosting you today. Thank you so much for this lovely conversation.
Thank you so much, Ria. Great questions, great hosting by you. And really, I got carried away in some of the answers, and they were too long. But I really loved the context and the premise. That's why probably some of the answers were long. But excellent conversation. Thank you so much, Ria, for hosting, and thank you to all the viewers who tuned in and who were kind enough to ask the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.